Rules never to be broken shouldn't have had to be made. By Zoe2550. Before I start, I'd like to apologize and take some things beforehand. I'm not going to edit the fic like I did before, so there will be some misreadings and other mistakes because I would be taking way too long to upload it. Like you have noticed, it's been 6 months and I'm very sorry for that. My old phone got destroyed. I don't know, maybe the AO3 curse got to me because I'm writing a fanfiction right now, or because I'm recording. Yeah, it's been an interesting 6 months since last time, so I apologize for any mistakes, and let's get on with the fake, I guess. Cracks like spiderwebs in my reality. Chapter 2, Part 2. Deku was running towards him. Why was he screaming? There was a hand around his throat. Who was grabbing him? Arms was holding Birdbrain. What happened to him? Todoroki was on the ground, coming up from a wall in the spacious clearing. Where was he? Villains were taking him away. How did things get this bad? Katsuki shoves the questions out of his head once he gets his senses back. A villain is threatening his life. He is being pulled into a portal. He is seconds away from being kidnapped. What can he do? If he tries to use his quirk, the villain will kill him. If he tries to hit the villain, he'll die. If he struggles to give his classmates time to rescue him, the villain kills him. Fuck. He can't do anything. No one can do anything. He's going to be taken. Then why the fuck is Deku running towards him? Why is he still trying to help? There is no point. There's no way for him to get out. Why doesn't the useless nerd understand that it is pointless to try to play hero to him? Katsuki's rapid heartbeat reminds him of the drum classes he was forced to quit. He will never get to go to them again. The heat from the raging forest fire reminds him of the boxing gym he used to frequent. He'll never be able to be in his room taking his anger out on that shitty punching bag again. Katsuki looks up and sees the tears streaming down Deku's face, and it reminds him of the time that he fell in the game of tag at 3 and Katsuki helped wipe away his tears and assure him that he will be okay. Deku will suffer forever because of this. Katsuki remembers how he always smiled, and how Deku was always convinced that a smile would make any victim feel just a bit more hopeful, just a bit better. So Katsuki smiles. It's more of a grimace, but he'll count it. He grimaces and just manages to choke out, "Izo, stay back." Katsuki doesn't want Izuku to hurt. He doesn't know why, but his heart beats that much faster at the thought of the nerd coming with him. The old nickname that Katsuki swore to never use again makes the fucking nerd pause. It's not even for a full second, but it's enough that Deku can't get through the portal to save him. The last thing Katsuki sees before the portal closes is Todoroki. The dual-quirked boy looks like he has just had his life destroyed in front of his eyes. And Deku's fear-streaked face, his vertigan green eyes seem duller than usual. He's in a bar. It's old. There are cobwebs sticking to the corners of the walls, and the water-stained ceiling above him. The floor is perfectly clean, which makes for a stark comparison with the dirty walls of the room he is sitting in. He is located in the dead center of the room, seated on a chair that cover both. Oh fuck, I skipped a line. Seated on a chair with the leather strap crisscrossing his front and locking his back against the back of the chair. Katsuki's hands are bound in quick-suppressant cuffs that cover both of his hands. Even if the cuffs failed somehow, Katsuki wouldn't be able to use his quirk without blowing his own hands off in the process. If the explosive blonde looked to the right, he would find a well-kept and effectively polished bar with a smoky villain called Kurogiri behind it. The teen avoided looking that way. Kurogiri had been there since he had woken up. The villain with the lizard quirk had knocked him out as soon as they reached the bar, and Katsuki had woken up to an empty room, with the exception of the warp bitch. Katsuki's mind had been trying to work out an escape plan for at least an hour, when the door to the bar finally fucking opened. Warp bitch finally stops cleaning his fucking already clean glasses for half a second to see who walks through the door, and then goes right the fuck back to it. Bakugo Katsuki. Quirk explosion. The boy that the media claims has the temperament of a villain. A rasping voice drawls. A shiver crawls down Katsuki's spine. He remembers that same voice goading the number one hero as his monster tried to kill that very same hero. Katsuki hated Shigaraki Tomura's voice. Come on, dusty fuck, drop the villain monologue thing and just talk like a normal fucking human being to the kid. A person with a patchwork of scars across his body drawls, flinging himself into one of the booths to Katsuki's left and longing there. The hero student's eyes are drawn to the metal stops holding the skin together, and suddenly he is far too aware of how little space there is between him and the villain that kidnapped him. I'm recruiting him. Monologues are necessary. Katsuki growls at the patchwork villain. No, they're not, comes the deadpan reply from the kidnapping villain. Darby, I'm the leader here. I understand how to recruit people better than you. Shigaraki states smugly. Who have you successfully recruited? Comes Darby's reply. Who have you? Shigaraki bites back, starting to scratch at his neck and seemingly forgetting about the hero student they had kidnapped. Toga, Darby replies, looking at his fingernails disinterestedly. She doesn't count. You just convinced her to walk with you for the last 3 minutes of the walk to the bar, Shigaraki yells, scratching his neck manically now. Exactly. I convinced her to join me for the rest of the walk. Drop the monologue, Dusty. I think the kid is probably aware of his own quirk and temperament. The patchwork villain's voice is guarding, and then it drops into a deadly serious tone, and Katsuki fights the shiver that races down his spine. Shut up, you piece of burnt toast, shut up! Shigaraki screeches before storming out of the main room and through the door to what Katsuki presumes is a back room of sorts. Okay, so Shigi's throwing a fit again. Can I recruit the living bomb? A girl with space buns asks, a dangerous glint in her eyes. Katsuki kind of wishes they kept on with the argument forever. It would have been better than having Darby fix his sickeningly blue eyes on him. No, Toga, I'll take over Shigaraki's role if you would be so kind as to leave. The burnt villain says it as a question, but the piercing glare he sends his comments makes it seem more like a command. Fine, take good care of him then, Darby. And if he bleeds, I want to be here to see it. Toga pouts before skipping in the same direction the leader went a few seconds ago, the magician who captured him following after her. The villain that had a lizard mutation and glared at Katsuki with pure hatred had to be forcibly removed from the room by a villain who said the most contractually shit in the history of contractions. Lastly, there was the villain with the fucking magnet. Magnet, did you have something to say? Comes Darby's cold voice. Katsuki has no clue what pissed the previously joking man off, but Katsuki also finds that he doesn't really want to know. Take it easy on the kid, Darby. God knows that you'll be the only one to listen to that. With that, Magna calmly walks out of the room, and the last thing Katsuki hears from the villain is a shout directed towards the Toga chick about throwing knives at the door. Katsuki reminds himself of all the possible exits in the building, as if he hadn't been agonizing over them for the past hour. It is better than running through the countless painful ways that Darby will torture him in a few short seconds. That Magna villain definitely didn't realize that Darby was the villain who kidnapped a child. There's no way I'm going to be able to get you out of the room, is there, Kurogiri? Darby asks. His anger seems overshadowed by exhaustion now. No, Darby, it's my job to tend this bar, comes the bland reply from Rabbage. Alright. Well, nothing I can do about that then. Right. Explodey, your name is Bakugo, yeah? Darby asks, dragging a wooden chair in front of Katsuki and sitting down on it, chest facing the back of the chair. Katsuki snarls in response. Like fuck he telling this fucking villain anything. I'ma take that as a yes. Look, the offer is for you to join us. Haven't you ever looked at the world and the heroes of this fucking world and wanted to burn it all down? Darby asks. His voice is almost flippant, but for someone like Katsuki, where anger is so familiar, the hidden rage in his voice is as loud as a waterfall. Fire seems more of a you thing. Katsuki bites out, glaring at the scarred man in front of him. Darby tilts his head before smirking. You hate it too. That anger that you express ever so easily, that doesn't come from nothing, kid. If you hate it, then let us help you destroy it. Fuck you, you don't fucking know me. Katsuki snorts, voice virtual dripping of his every word. Darby looks at him intently for a second before responding. Come on, kid. Join us and we'll take care of whatever or whoever you're angry with. Even if it has nothing to do with the Hero Society, we'll make sure that thing can never get to you again. Just join us. Katsuki closes his eyes for a brief second, mustering the false confidence that he always has at hand, pushing down the raging fear that lives in his stomach and is threatening to claw itself up into his throat. Then Katsuki opens his eyes and meets Darby's intense glare with a calm and determined look of his own. I will never become a villain. I will never harm someone just because it would help me out. Katsuki bites out. A snarl takes its usual place on his face. Darby sighs and then gets up, returning to the chair to its previous spot. As he walks towards the same direction his friends went, he leaves Katsuki with one last question. Haven't you already done that? What? A small crack snaked itself across Katsuki's reality. The blonde is once again trying to come up with a plan that gets him out of this impossible fucking situation when another person enters. It has been quite a long time since Darby left him with a question that the blonde refuses to dwell on, and Katsuki has been starting to wonder what the villains intend to do to him now that he had refused them. Apparently, the lizard villain was the one they had decided to send to fill him in. What was odd was that Kurogiri was not behind his bar when Lizard Fog entered the room. There were times where Toga or the contracting villain came in to give him water or food, but every single time a villain was with Katsuki, so was Kurogiri, which meant that the lizard was breaking the norm. "So, you're the great Katsuki Bakugo, huh? My name's Spinner." Lizard Frog grits out, all the while looking at Katsuki as if he is worth less than the dirt that he walks on. Wow, what a lame fucking villain name. Katsuki deadpans, forcing the image of his teacher out of his mind before it could make his composure crumble. Lizard Fog's tongue darts out quickly, barely seen as the villain glares at the teen in front of him. Katsuki, for his part, lazily raises his eyebrows at the villain, miming a boredness that he doesn't feel. Stain was a hero to society. Katsuki rolls his eyes. Spinner ignores him. Not only to society, but to me as well. His mission was a noble one. I intend to carry on. I will also purge this world of fake heroes. Lizard Fuck is practically fucking sparkling as he talks about the fuckword known as Stain. I couldn't give less of a shit if I tried, Lizard Fuck. Katsuki barks, as leans back against the chair, trying desperately to recreate his usual bored slouch despite the aggravating restraints. The sentence makes Spinner flick out his tongue several more times as the anger builds up in his eyes. You, Bakugo, are the incarnation of a false hero. Katsuki rolls his eyes. I'm not even a hero yet, dickwad. How can you be a false one? You will be a false hero, the type that only cares about rankings and money. I hear you refuse to join the side that you'd better suited to. Therefore, I'll just have to convince you that this side is where you belong, and if you refuse, then I'll kill you before you have the chance to become a hero. Spinner rants, a sadistic glee flares to life in his eyes, and Katsuki loses any facade of boredom as pure fear strikes through his body. What Katsuki can deal with a little bit of pain. His mother made sure of that, always teaching him skills he'd need to become a hero in the future. What the blonde wasn't ready to face was death, and suddenly that seemed like the only option in front of him now. Darby couldn't manage to make you see the truth about yourself. Let's see if I have more success. Lizard Fox says as he pulls out one of his knives and shoves it into the teen's bicep. The world goes white as agony flares across Katsuki's awareness. A scream is wedged out of his throat, and he can feel something thick and red run down his arm. Fuck you! Katsuki yells once his senses come back to him. The lizard laughs, throwing his head back and letting the blade he had just shoved into the blonde's arm fall to the floor. Then he pulls a small dagger out of a belt around his waist. The sharp end glits in the doorlight that swings above Katsuki. The teen clenches his jaw. Spinner drags the knife along his forearm in a long but shallow cut. The pain isn't all that bad compared to what his mother trained him to withstand, but Katsuki has a feeling it's going to get a lot worse. He's right, of course. 37 shallow cuts later, and Katsuki's barely holding back the tears that prick in his eyes. Spinner is chuckling now at every single touch of the blade to Katsuki's body. You're gonna fucking regret this. Katsuki's growl turns to a whimper as Spinner drags the knife across a previous cut he made on his left side. No, I will definitely not regret this, Spinner crackles. Katsuki is about to retort, but then he hears the voices outside of the door, and Spinner's crackles die immediately. The blonde is about to grin until the Spinner craves a sizable gash across Katsuki's right calf. Fucking die, you useless piece of shit! Katsuki cries out in pain. Is it more thrilling to say that to a villain than a middle schooler? Spinner retorts before silently slithering out of the room just as the door opens. What? The crack goes a bit wider. It turns out that Shigaraki could not give two shits about Katsuki. The man walks in with contractory due Magican ass and toga chick, and just keeps walking. He doesn't even so much as look at Katsuki. Just walks by him and carries on ranting to the villains following him. Seconds later, Rob Bitch portaled in and once again did not spare Katsuki a glance. The blonde truly tried to roll his eyes and make some retort that he would have made if he wasn't bleeding from 37 cuts, large gash and a sizable stab wound, but ultimately failed as he clenched his jaw to keep any whimpers from escaping. He'd be damned if he let them see how much their fucking torture affected him. Korigiri began cleaning his clean cups all over again, and Katsuki was plunged into silence. The absence of sound intensified the pain he was trying to desperately to pretend didn't exist. It drew every ounce of his attention until he could focus on nothing other than the red, hot, aching pain craved into his body. The tears became harder to keep at bay, along with the screams. The seconds felt like hours. Time practically stopped as Katsuki sat in agony. The boy never really cared about gods or spirituality, all that useless shit. However, sitting here with the skin on fire and the belief that he may very well die in the spar, he found himself silently muttering prayer after prayer, begging every deity he knew to let him survive, just until someone came for him. Someone would came for him, right? Katsuki felt his eyes slipping closed, exhaustion finally catching up to him and calming his mind. Maybe if no one came for him, he would die in this place without any more pain. Such a futile wish made Katsuki want to chuckle. Instead, he was startled into complete consciousness by yelling. What the fuck happened to the kid? Darby yelled, his face contorted into fury. So at least one of the villains knew to look at the captive to make sure they hadn't escaped. Katsuki's pain-molded brain didn't really understand the logic behind the villain's words, but he commended him for at least making sure Katsuki hasn't gotten away. If someone doesn't fucking answer me, I will swear I'll burn this bar to the ground, and all of you with it. Darby's voice is no longer a shout, more of a deadly growl, and All of the villains are in the room now, so there's really no need to yell. Katsuki watches as no one answers. It's not surprising. Where the hell would a villain admit to anything? Plus, Dabi was quite intimidating when pissed off. Not that would have stopped Katsuki if he was in any other place. Dabi, do not threaten my spawn point. The kid is a bit beat up, so what? He's the hostage, you know? Shigaraki stars flippantly. However, there is a threat in his words when he warns Dabi away from threatening the bar. A bit beat up? Do you not see the blood, Shigaraki? What has this kid done to deserve being treated as a normal hostage? He hasn't even made any attempts at escape, the scarred man shouted as exasperated. Fuck, if Katsuki knew why. He just wanted to sleep. Sleep away always made his pain go away. Dabi, you would do well to remember that I'm the MC here, not you. Shigaraki looked like he was about to launch as he growled his last sentence, and Dabi seemed to get the message. Whatever, handjob. Magna wanna help me clean up the kid? Dabi asks. His tone was back to be flippant and relaxed. Katsuki started to wonder if this was all a dream. This man made no goddamn sense. The blonde decided that it wasn't worth the energy. He was running on a couple hours of sleep, God only knows how long ago, and the constant pain wasn't helping his consciousness. Hey, kid, Magni and I are gonna get your wounds dressed to the best of our ability. I'm better with taking care of deeper wounds than Magna, so she will be doing your shallower cuts. Sounds alright? The scarred man asks, and Katsuki hated that the man seemed determined to forget the fact that some unknown hours ago he had kidnapped Katsuki and threatened his life. It also seemed that most of the villains had left already. However, none of that slipped out of Katsuki's mouth. Instead, his pain-addled brain latched on the stupidest thing he could have. Dabi and Magna froze, a hard glint entering their eyes, that Katsuki was familiar with seeing in his mother's. It meant pain, except where Mitsuki was helping him be a better hero, Dabi and Magna wanted him dead. Yeah, she. You got an issue with that, kid? Magna asks, speaking for the second time. Fuck no, I just didn't know. God, good for you. Fuck, I sound like Deku. Fuck rambling. Look, I'm not joining your fucking children's club, so don't bother with that speech again. Katsuki desperately wanted to curse himself, or maybe the two of the three villains left in the room. Yes, Warbitch was still cleaning his fucking glasses, but unfortunately, the pain spiked again for a second and he put his energy into not crying out. Okay. With what one word response, Magna started cleaning out and putting band-aids on his shallower cuts. She worked quickly and effectively, and as soon as she was done, she left the room. No more small talk or villain monologue. Magna might just be Katsuki's favorite out of all these murderous villains. With Magna gone, Dabi finally began working on his stab wound and large gap, which is absolutely stupid because those were the two wounds he was losing the most blood from. They should definitely focus on those two before the smaller cuts. What a bunch of idiots. Look, it wasn't just the sports festival that made us decide to take you. We looked into your background as well, specifically your years at Aldera Middle School. Those were the words that Darby chose to use to break the silence. Katsuki didn't like them. I've got no fucking clue why my behavior as a 13-year-old kid piqued your interest. Katsuki meant to sound snarky, but exhaustion slurred his words. Bullying, physical abuse, illegal quirk use, emotional abuse, suicide baiting. Darby's tone was monotone. Katsuki refused to compare it to Icy Hots as he listed the terrible things. I never did any of that. Katsuki knew that was a lie. He's aware of how he suicide baited Deku that day in middle school, but all the other shit was bullshit. Illegal quirk use was true, but it was a bullshit thing. Midoriya Izuku got in a multiple of fights with you, so say his record, but he was always the only one who came out with any injuries, burn marks, and even now the kid has scars from your explosions. Hence the physical abuse. You refer to the green-haired hero as Deku, which is a word that means useless. Hence for the emotional abuse. I think you're smart enough to realize that physical and emotional abuse counts as bullying, and I know that you are aware you were illegal using your quirk. Lastly, I know that you suicide baited Midoriya Izuku, therefore I'm not arguing the point with you. Darby replied. His tone was clipped as if he hated that he was saying the things he was. Katsuki felt like he had just been hit by a train, but it didn't make any sense. He was just doing what his mother did, making sure that Izuku was ready for the world he would live in. The blonde could admit that sometimes he was harsher than needed to be, but that was because the dumb nerd thought he was so much better than him, and Katsuki had to be the best. His mother reminded him of it every fucking day. I didn't do anything wrong, I just did what my mother does, and she's not wrong, so I can't be wrong. Katsuki slurred again, his conviction falling away as exhaustion replaced it. Well, then you both were wrong. With that, Darby finishes tending to his injuries, then throws a lazy wave behind him as he walks away. Watch. The cracks across Katsuki's entire reality, with a little more pressure added, it would shatter. Katsuki is woken up by the cold press of metal to his neck. The blonde curses himself for giving into the exhaustion in the first place. If you say a word about my actions to anyone, I will gut you in the most painful way. Spinner threatens, and it makes Katsuki's heart beat faster than it should. Right, I got it. Katsuki rasps, tears coming from his eyes, unbidden as the fear of more pain intensifies with every breath that makes the blade dig into his neck more. Good boy. Spinner says gleeful. It sends a shiver of fear and disgust down Katsuki's back. Just then, Shigaraki enters the room, and Spinner backs away almost immediately. But not before Katsuki watches the scarred villain's eyes narrow in consideration at the lizard. However, Darby doesn't say a word, instead opening to lean casually against the wall and stare boldly at the ceiling. Shigaraki begins to talk about Katsuki joining the League of Villains, and Katsuki is ready to call on his false confidence when the doorbell rings. Silence falls across the bar, every single person in the room alert and ready to attack or flee. Katsuki is hoping against all hope that someone actually came for him. The silence is soon shattered by the cacophony of the bar wall being kicked in by several heroes. However, Katsuki meets Spinner's eyes, only to find that there is a promise of pain in his near future, and it has Katsuki trembling in fear. Katsuki bolted up from his sleeping position, cold sweat running down his neck and back. His heart was pounding, and he could tell that he was breathing far too quickly. The sharp scrap of air on his throat as it entered his body made him want to cry. Phantom pains from the many cuts that Spinner had left on his body made his chest rise and fall even quicker. Tears started running down the blonde's face as he wrapped his arms around his knees and rocked himself back and forth on his bed. He was only aware of just how thin the walls that separated him from Kirishima and Shinsu's room were, as sobs racked his body. The teen bit his lips and forced his hand over his mouth to keep the cries quiet. His other hand fisted itself into his blanket, preventing himself from piercing his hand with his fingernails. Katsuki's chest ached, as the breath didn't slow down. A hacking cough fought its way out of Katsuki's throat, only for the boy to go back to trying to get more air into his lungs. Images of the bar flashed through his mind quicker than he could process. His attention was quickly pulled from the pain in his chest to the headache that was beginning to take up all his attention. He was going to die if he didn't get a handle of this. How was it so fucking hard for someone as strong as him to just fucking breathe? He needed help. Auntie's son, Katsuki. Help? Izuku? Kachan? Where are you? Katsuki felt his phone vibrate in his hand. He hadn't expected the nerd to actually be awake. It was 2 in the morning, for fuck's sake. The blonde snarkily managed to click the button, but the message was obscured by the tears falling down his face. He tried several times before giving up and collapsing to his side as sobs racked his body and the vapid breath made him feel like he was dying, or maybe being suffocated. The blonde fell on his bed in the haste to get away from a sudden loud sound that was coming from his blankets. It took the panicking boy's mind painfully long to connect the threatening sound with the ringtone of his phone. The teen curled into himself, pressing his hand painfully hard to his chest, as if that would release the tightness there. He couldn't answer the phone like this. He just couldn't. His mother would kill him if she knew about his current state. She'd be pissed. What if she came to EA? What if she beat him in the dorms in front of everyone? Every single person in the class who wanted to see him fail would get their wish. Everyone who thought he was the scum of earth would cheer on her. What if Choto laughed? What if Izuku jeered? What if Aizawa helped her? Katsuki was rocking back and forth, his back hitting the wall ever so lightly, as not to awaken Kirishima. His legs ached from the constant motion of rocking him. His stomach rolled with the fear that overcame him. He was going to die. The door opened. Katsuki just let his head fall. If he was going to die while sobbing on the floor, then he would rather not give the person the fucking hell. The satisfaction of seeing just how broken he was, how scared he was. Kachan, I'm here, murmured a familiar voice that had been at his back his entire life. Katsuki began to sob harder. They sounded disgusting in his own ears, but his breath was calming ever so slightly. "It's okay, you're safe now. You're going to be okay. May I touch you?" Came the same quiet and calm mutters from Izuku. Katsuki tried to respond, but found his voice wouldn't work. Why the fuck couldn't he talk? He couldn't breathe either. Fuck, the sludge villain has gotten him again. His heart raced. No air was making it in. The sludge would kill him this time. Suddenly he felt a steady work in him, under his fingertips. What the hell? There was no rhythm with the sludge villain. It was just slime sliding around him and forcing its way down his throat. So then Spinner had come back for him, was ready to finish him off. He would feel blades piercing his skin at any moment. The pain would be excruciating. The scars would never disappear. Exaggerated breathing made itself to his consciousness. There was an inhale, and then a few seconds of silence, and then an exaggerated exhale, over and over again, which made no sense. He couldn't hear Spinner breathe. Sometimes Katsuki would try to guess whenever he was inhaling or exhaling throughout the torture. It kept his mind off of the pain, but he could never hear the breathing. "Kachan, try your best to focus and copy my breathing. You're safe, you're going to be okay." Izuku's pleasant murmuring broke through his panicked thoughts. The blonde tried to breathe the same pattern as he could hear Izuku breathe. He was sick of his breath stuttering, but every time he fucked up the pattern, Izuku would murmur a calm and comforting "you're doing great," just like that, or an "everything will be okay, you're safe, it's okay," and Katsuki would go back to trying to copy the pattern. The heartbeat underneath his fingers reminded him that he was safe, because if Izuku, the kid who was always fucking anxious, wasn't panicking, then everything had to be fine. "There you go, just like that, easy. Breathe, you're doing amazing, Kachan." Izuku's calming words never stopped. It was a steady rhythm. Once Katsuki was able to breathe without Izuku's breathing as an example. Katsuki's voice breaks before he can get anything else, making more tears of frustration make their way down his cheek. "It's okay, you're okay, don't push yourself, Kachan. I wait as long as you need me to before you talk." Izuku is quick with the reassurance, and despite Katsuki's desire to call it a joke and yell about how he doesn't need help, he finds the reassurance comforting. Izuku begins to mutter about random things, mostly analyzing the quirks of their classmates, as Katsuki carries on breathing. The background of Izuku's gentle, constant talking lulls the blonde into a state of relaxation that reminds him of all the places he aches now. His head is pounding up a storm, his throat feels raw, his chest aches, and his joints ache from the constant rocking. His eyes are heavy with exhaustion, and his back has gone numb from the sitting position. "Suku, can we move to bed?" Katsuki raps, his throat protesting the words. "Of course, Kachan." Izuku's tone is still soft despite the energy in his words. With that, Katsuki feels a warm, gentle hand on his forearm, helping him stand and walk over to his bed. Izuku carefully helps the blonde into bed, slipping the blanket over the boy before turning to the door. "Where are you going?" Katsuki asks, trying and unfortunately failing to keep the fear out of his voice. "It's okay, I'll be right back. I was just going to grab you a cup of water to soothe your throat. Will you be okay for a few seconds?" Izuku asks. No accusation is heard in his tone, and Katsuki grumbles an affirmation, and then the note is gone. The silence is louder than all of his idiot's friends combined. Katsuki feels the panic rising up again as the darkness presses in on him. The outline of his punching bag, desk, chair, and weights start to blur together. He tries to ignore the figure that Katsuki knows is just made by the hoodie he hung up on the wall, but it seems like the person is moving closer to him. "Sorry, Kachan, I'm back now." Izuku's calm voice shatters the cacophony of silence and forces the shadows back to where they belong. Well, Katsuki clears his throat before trying again. "Whatever, nerd." His throat aches and suddenly there's a glass of water in the blonde's hands. "Drink slowly," the nerd encourages. Katsuki obeys without complaint. Izuku was right. The water immediately soothes his throat, and the blonde can feel the exhaustion of the night catching up to him. All he wants to do is go back to sleep so that he can be attentive in hero training, but the fear of nightmares makes him terrified to face the darkness. "So, I don't know what helps you after panic attacks, but I was thinking that maybe I could read a manga. Uh, you have to, and you could rest." The green-haired boy effortlessly pulls Katsuki out of his thoughts again with the innocent, stuttered questions. Silence permeates the room as Katsuki thinks the offer over. It's not the oppressive silence that the blonde felt like while the nerd was gone, but it's still uncomfortable. He is about to answer when Izuku begins to ramble. "I mean, also, I could leave if you want. I'm not trying to butt in where I'm not welcomed, and I know I'm not very useful for you, but it was just an offer. You shouldn't feel pressure to take in or anything I wouldn't be offered. I don't want to leave you on your own unless, of course, that's what you want, because I promise I won't fight your honor. That is, you say the word and I'll..." Katsuki's chuckling interrupts Izuku's panic rant, and the green-haired boy goes bright red. "I was gonna say that the manga thing is a good idea, but I couldn't get a word in over you, nerd. I have a couple of mangas I haven't read yet in the bottom right drawer of my desk. Go pick one and then get the fuck in the bed." Katsuki's rasp forcing down the overwhelming gratitude that makes him want to choke up with tears again. "Right, Kachan, sorry." Izuku squeaks as he stumbles over to Katsuki's desk. Lock the door while you're up as well, nerd." Katsuki goes for a snarl, but his damn throat can't muster much more than a croak. Izuku runs over to his door and quickly turns the lock before going to Katsuki's window and showing the blonde that it was locked as well, as all without a single word. The nerd quickly sits down on Katsuki's bed, easily pulling the covers over his feet before hesitantly guiding Katsuki's head onto his lap. "Is it okay if I play with the hair as I read?" Izuku asks, nervousness present in every syllable as he turns to the bedside lamp. "Yeah, whatever," the blonde mumbles. As Izuku begins to read, Katsuki feels hesitant fingers lightly run through his hair before the nerd becomes sure that Katsuki isn't going to murder him for it. The movement in his hair is slow and sets a rhythm to Izuku's voice. Ever so often, Izuku is willingly lightly wind one of Katsuki's longer strands of hair around his finger before going back to the slow, steady rhythm of running his hand through his hair. The tension leaves Katsuki's body as Izuku's voice fills the silence that had seemed too impenetrable, and the constant rhythm of Izuku's hand through his hair gave his mind something to focus on. The blonde stayed awake for as long as possible, but sooner or later he started to slip into unconsciousness. A soft "Good night, cats, I've got you" was the last thing the blonde heard before entering the sweet embrace of a peaceful sleep. That was chapter 2 of Craig's like spiderwebs in my reality. I'm really sorry for every time I misspoke or yeah. Yeah, I guess it's I have to edit at least a bit after all. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, even if I'm not motivated to edit much. So you have to endure the mistakes. Not my problem, I guess. I would like when anyone would comment something. I doubt it, but anyway, bye. Flick out his tongue several more times as the anger builds up in his eyes. Who are you? Barty? God, sorry. Katsuki bolted up from his sleeping post. Oh my god, I'm too much into the Marauders fandom.